Terence "Bud" Crawford, in a recent interview with Brian Custer, he made an interesting comment. In fact, Brian Custer asked him a question about fighting Errol Spence, and then after fighting Errol Spence, Jermell Charlo, and then after fighting Jermell Charlo, Danny Garcia. And the reason why Brian Custer asked Terence "Bud" Crawford that question is because representatives and executives representing PBC told Brian Custer that that format with those 3 fights consecutively were presented to Terence "Bud" Crawford within the negotiations with him fighting Errol Spence. Let's hear what Brian Custer actually said, and let's hear the response of Terence "Bud" Crawford. And then we're going to really break down how Terence "Bud" Crawford basically turned down a minimum of $40 million that he could have earned in 6 months. Don't take my word for it. Y'all know what I'm going to say. Roll the tape.
Is it true that PBC said that they're going to give you the Errol Spence fight, then Jermell Charlo, and then Danny Garcia?
No, that's false. Who told you that?
Yeah, that's from the PBC. That was the PBC rep said that those were, they said that we told Bud Crawford, you take this Errol Spence fight, you know, obviously there could be a rematch depending on who wins. We're going to give him Jermell Charlo, and we're going to give him Danny Garcia.
No, that definitely wasn't the case. If that was the case, it would have been in the contract. It would have been in the contract. That never was the case. The case was Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. That's it. Me fighting Errol Spence, then a rematch, and if we split, then another fight, which, you know, I explained to them. I didn't even ask for a rematch. So, you know, I don't know where everybody got Terence Crawford wanted the rematch and this and that and that and this. That never was the case.
Now, y'all heard it with your own ears. Brian Custer asked Terence "Bud" Crawford, is it true that the PBC executives offered you 3 fights if you take the Spence fight, first fight, and then you win the fight with Spence, then we're going to offer you the Charlo fight, Jermell Charlo, the same fighter that Bud Crawford been claiming that he wanted to fight as well. And then when you beat Charlo, because you think you can beat him, you're going to be undisputed, not just in the welterweight division, because you're going to vacate those titles that you become undisputed after you beat, you know, Spence, and then you're going to fight Charlo. You claim you can beat him, so you'll be undisputed in the junior middleweight division, and then you're going to fight Danny Garcia to give him a shot at those titles. Is that true? And guess what Bud said? Crawford told Brian Custer, y'all heard it yourselves. He said, that's false. He also said it would have been in the contract, and it wasn't in the contract. Let me make 2 points, and then we're going to move on. Point number 1, first and foremost, let's just go back the last 5 years, just the last 5. And let's evaluate the history of how Al Heyman and the promoters and the PBC executives as a whole, how they have been consistent with fighters. Okay? Now, what do I mean by consistent with fighters? I mean it in the sense that, let's take Pacquiao as an example. When Pacquiao was done with Bob Arum and Pacquiao came over to the PBC side, I made mention of this before on YSM Media, and I made mention in previous videos on my channel, right, that Pacquiao was offered a 2 to 3 fight deal to fight other PBC welterweights. Don't take my word for it. We've seen Pacquiao fight Adrian Broner, right? We've seen Pacquiao fight Keith Thurman, right? And we've seen Pacquiao fight Yordenis Ugas, right? That's 3 PBC fighters right there. So if you look at the history of PBC, you see that when you come over as a fighter to the PBC side, they're going to give you an opportunity to maximize your earning potential to fight the other welterweights in their stable, right? Okay. So they have had a proven track record for the last 5 years when it comes down to them being consistent. So their credibility is not on trial. However, Terence Bud Crawford can't even stay consistent in the last 30 days. You know, because it was November 1st when he did that IG Live interview that he posted himself. I think that was November 1st or 2nd, right? And within 30 days, we've seen him become inconsistent in his words and his actions. So point number 1, as a fan, you should be more inclined to believe PBC offering him those 3 fights with Spence, Charlo, and then Garcia, than believing Bud Crawford saying it's false, it was not in the contract, right? Okay. Point number 2. PBC have not only been consistent with offering fighters the opportunity to fight other fighters in their stable to maximize their earning potential, but they've also been consistent in promoting rematches. Why am I bringing up rematches? Because y'all heard Brian Custer mention rematch to Terence Bud Crawford, right? And Terence Bud Crawford admitted himself that PBC representatives did offer him a rematch with Spence. But before I go to that part, let's look at the history of PBC and how they deal with rematches. Remember, we're going back 5 years to prove their credibility and their consistency. So from 2017, David Benavidez, he fought Gavril twice, right or wrong, on PBC. Andy Ruiz, another PBC fighter, he fought Joshua twice. Am I right or wrong? Deontay Wilder fought Ortiz twice. Am I right or wrong? Jamel Charlo fought Harrison twice. Am I right or wrong? Deontay Wilder fought Fury 3 times. At least twice. Rematches. Am I right or wrong? Jamel Charlo recently fought Castaño. And his last fight was the 2nd rematch. Am I right or wrong? So it's in PBC's nature, right, to draw up contracts that refer to rematches when they know 2 top-level competitors are going to compete. And Bud Crawford acknowledged that they offered him a rematch with Spence. Point number 2, and this is the reason why I'm saying that Terence Bud Crawford sacrificed a $40 million payday within 6 months that he could have earned to fight David Evanesian, making quote-unquote $10 million in 1 year. Don't take my word for it. Terence Bud Crawford, you heard what he just said. He said, me fighting Spence and then the rematch. And then if we split wins, then we're going to have another fight, which is a rubber match, a third fight between us three. But like I explained to them, I didn't even ask for a rematch. Terence Bud Crawford said that he had to explain himself. Why did he have to explain himself? Because it sounded like Al Heyman and PBC representatives were trying to convince him, convince this man to step back in the ring with Spence for a second time. And he declined. Why do I say 40 million? Because he would at least got 15 million for the first fight. At least a minimum of $15 million, right? Now, that's him being the quote unquote B-side. But because Bud Crawford keeps admitting to himself and he keeps on lying to the fans. See, he's trying to convince himself, but he's lying to the fans by saying he's so confident he can beat Spence. Then that means that you should exercise the rematch clause so that you can get 2 paydays within 6 months and you'll become the A side. So if you made 15 million for being the B side, that means when you beat Spence the second time, since you really believe in your heart that you can really beat him, you'll be the quote unquote A side, and then you can get the 65% or the 70% lion's share of the revenue. Huh. That sounds like about a total of, a minimum of 25 million in the second fight. But he said, I didn't even ask for a rematch. You didn't have to ask for a rematch, Terence Bud Crawford. They offered it to you voluntarily to give you an opportunity to make a minimum of $40 million within a 6-month time span. But no. You declined the first fight with Spence, and by your own admission, Terence Bud Crawford, you declined a second fight in the rematch. And you did all of this for $10 million in 1 year? Now, the reason why I keep saying in 1 year is because he fought Sean Porter last year, and he hasn't earned any revenue in the sport of boxing since November of 2021. So for a man that's coming out in these interviews saying, I ain't sitting on my hands, waiting for no man to help me feed my family. That's what he said in his last interview before this Brian Custer interview. That's what he keeps saying. But he turned down a $40 million payday within 6 months that he could have earned for a $10 million payday that he's only going to earn in 1 year. Where they do that at? Since Terence Bud Crawford is his own boss, when do bosses do that? Show me where they do that at. Show me. I haven't met not one boss yet that's willing to sacrifice $30 million extra that they could make in a 6-month time span compared to losing $30 million within a whole year. Where they do that at? I need you all to comment in the comment section below. Make this make sense to me as a businessman myself. This don't make no sense to me. Do it make sense to you? He turned down a grand total of a minimum of $40 million that he could have made within 6 months fighting Spence 2 times. And the reason why I say 2 times and not 3, because Terence Bud Crawford keeps convincing himself and trying to convince the fans that he has enough confidence and skill to beat Errol Spence. So why not fight him twice if you know you can beat him and then make $40 million out of the deal? That's what Floyd Mayweather did when he fought Maidana twice. That's what David Haney did fighting Kambosos twice. What world champion, pound for pound, top level competitor will turn down a rematch in their biggest payday in a legacy fight of their whole career. What other world champion you know that have done that in the sport of boxing? Comment in the comment section below. I think I made my point. I'm Manager Marty. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel, comment in the section below, and then share this video, because we ain't done yet.